Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest pessimism amongst business leaders in the UK as investment drops, with over half saying it's down to mainly either Brexit or inflation. So basically Brexit in both cases then. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there's been another little survey of business leaders reported, and the headline news is that the UK businesses are cutting investment due to soaring prices and Brexit. Now, rather than get carried away, there are a few things to point out here. As the Brexiteers would be keen to point out, inflation is higher than normal in a lot of advanced economies. The war in Ukraine and sanctions against Russia, which sort of works both ways, are having an undeniable impact. Global production still not really recovered to pre-pandemic levels, really, and both of these produce knock-on effects. The higher price of oil, for example, makes transport much more expensive. Well, this is a problem when linked into the global supply chain. So yes, inflation is an issue in lots of countries. It's just that amongst our G7 compadres, the UK has it worst of all, and way worse than our European G7 neighbours. And when you just compare inflation rates for G7 countries, it already looks bad for the UK. But then you consider, well, if we've got decent growth, you can offset some of the effects of inflation. Because, if things cost more, well, that's bad. But if you're making more money, well, the net effect's reduced. So then you realise we don't just have the highest inflation in the G7, but the lowest growth. Nice one. So when we're talking about UK businesses slashing investment, we're not talking about a problem that is anywhere near as severe in comparable economies. We're talking about something that is especially bad for us. A third of the business leaders responding said that inflation was their biggest issue. Now, it's certainly true. If Brexit had never been a thing, but inflation would still be higher than normal. And as a result of that, some businesses would still be affected. At the end of the day, if a business has higher costs, it will struggle to invest as much unless it is able to increase its revenues to match. So how to increase revenues in order to match rising costs? Well, you either sell more or you charge more. Obviously depends on the specific business, but charging more when inflation is not just really high for businesses, but also their customers is tricky. And if you're talking about customers in the EU, well, our stuff's already more expensive because of all that Brexit red tape. So they're a little bit constrained there as well. Obviously, the energy companies have got no problem putting their prices up. They know we can't do without energy, but it's not like they invest much anyway. But a lot of businesses will struggle to be able to raise prices by much when their customers are either feeling the squeeze or can get stuff cheaper elsewhere in the single market. Selling more is also a problem, but for a variety of reasons this time. First, the availability of more customers with enough cash to afford your goods or services, but it would also require you to increase productivity. This is where Brexit is also a problem, because hiring new staff is not as easy. In mathematical terms, the unemployment rate is very low. It's made up of a load of people on slave wages and 0 hours contracts, but in practical terms, we effectively have full employment. That is not to say that we don't have any unemployed people, and that any you come across will be a figment of your imagination, as Douglas Adams may say, but that there are more jobs than there are people of working age to fill them. So recruitment is tricky. Due to these factors, businesses are finding it difficult to be able to invest. But then there's the motivation. So let's say a business had the funds to invest, because I've read of various business owners saying they've absolutely got the funds to invest and they'd like to invest it in Britain. And it might be they may want to modernise existing facilities to make them more efficient or expand them to make them more productive. It doesn't follow that the business will make that investment, because an investment needs a good chance of a return. Because it's not just the current economic landscape that's the problem. Businesses in the UK simply don't know what's going to happen next. It's like we've been living in a soap opera since 2016. Right now, businesses know what the trading arrangements are with their customers. It has changed a great deal over the last couple of years. They've really had to catch up, but they sort of now know. But the government are threatening to chuck the agreements in the bin. That would worsen trading conditions considerably. Why invest if your business is going to end up shrinking? You might need that money to provide a buffer for a couple of years of the most insane government policy ever devised in this country, and that investment wouldn't generate a return anyway. And if it does happen, if we throw these agreements in the bin, when is it going to happen? Who knows? And if it happens, how long will it last before the politicians sort themselves out? Again, no idea. Business leaders look at a worsening cost of living crisis, squeezing their customers, ramping up their own overheads, a government that is giving the impression it's about to radically change their economic policies and burn a load of regulations, and foreign markets that might end up with even higher trade barriers placed between them. Like I say, a third of them said inflation was their chief concern. Another fifth said Brexit, referring to red tape for trade and delays, or possibly a shortage of labour. But Brexit, of course, has added a great deal onto our level of inflation as well. In truth, investment had been rising in the UK year after year, even under David Cameron. Then it stopped. It just stopped dead after the Brexit referendum. The risk in investing when you had no idea what the trading arrangements were going to be in the next 5 or 10 years, other than much worse, meant lots of businesses held on. I know of business owners, as I said, who said that they held on with investment plans because they really wanted to create more jobs in the UK. They wanted to base themselves here, but they ended up not being able to wait. They needed to make their investment decisions and they invested abroad instead. The Netherlands has been a popular destination for what would otherwise have been investment here. France overtook the UK as Europe's main beneficiary of foreign inward investment as well. Investment dropped with a combination of COVID and Brexit, as you'd expect. It's also failed to get back to even the pre-Brexit and COVID level. So even the point at which it just stalled, we haven't even got back up to that, as you'd expect again. Our competitiveness has been massively reduced. It's that simple. Of course, investment is down. In order for it to go back up, one of two things has to happen. First, you reverse whatever it was that caused it to go down. The Tories do not seem interested in this, which just makes it all the easier, quite frankly, when the next Labour government come into power to score easy wins by just, forming normal working relationships with our neighbours. Second option is you compensate by creating the opportunity for growth in other areas. And this is what the Brexiteers keep talking about in order to avoid facing up to the first, much easier method. The problem is, none of them have got any ideas how. Some will talk about free trade deals with countries around the world. Now, I've already discussed this recently. There isn't the scope for that. And free trade deals don't actually mean free trade. We used to have genuinely free trade across Europe. Since Brexit, we don't have free trade with anyone. We don't even have free trade with ourselves. The UK itself has been split into two different markets. I had to grimace at one quote from the Institute of Directors regarding the Tory leadership contest. They said, the new political leadership team that is established in the autumn needs to include stronger incentives for business to invest as part of a clear economic strategy to improve business confidence. Oh dear. A clear economic strategy. Oh dear. The new government will just apply the laziest solution, as I've said before. They're already thinking about cutting corporation tax, making all sorts of easily debunked claims about what this will lead to. Businesses won't complain about that, of course, but it won't make them invest either. For that, you need to assure them that their investment will actually lead to something. Cutting corporation tax may well give them more money to invest, but as those tax revenues will not be compensated elsewhere, it will just come at a cost to public infrastructure. That will weaken the economic environment. Tories just don't understand investment. They just think all public spending is bad. Hospitals, what do we need hospitals for? To heal people so that they can get back to work and be productive. Can't they just not get sick? Roads? Why do we need to keep building roads? So we can move people and goods around the country to service our economy. Schools? What on earth are they for? So we can train people to drive production into the next generation and generate our future wealth. Public spending is not just a moral issue, it's a practical issue. They just don't get it. Or those who don't get it don't care. The mistake is often to think they actually want the country to be strong and they're just incompetent. Many of them don't. They just want themselves to do well. The only thing propping up our economy right now is the price of gas and oil because we're a producer. So that is flattering our balance of trade right now. but it's artificial and does nothing to help the real British businesses. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.